So we are in week 2 of the This Is Us sermon series, and today we're talking about care. Now I'll be honest with you, a lot of other words could have been used there, but they all carry too much baggage. So for instance, I could have said the word missions here. And missions are a great thing, but oftentimes when I say missions, your first idea or first thought that you have is what Animo's doing in Guatemala, like the idea of things far away. And that ignores the stuff that's up close. So it's not good enough. It can't just be out, it also has to be in as well. I could have also used evangelism, which is a great term, also really scary to a lot of people, because it's only in our minds. Evangelism is telling somebody about Jesus Christ. But the reality is, if we just tell somebody about Jesus Christ, but don't tell them or show them in our lives why this Jesus person is actually important, if we don't show them that's actually a life change, not just a fun thing to say, doesn't really matter. So evangelism didn't work either. So I landed on care. I think it's what we're called to do. We as Christians are called to care. Just care in general. To care for people far away, to care for people close by, to care for each other. We're called to care. That's why I chose that word. And that's something that we do here at Mumsy. We care. We have a track record of it. And I think about the different things we've done. We support Animo, and that's been a great partnership. And I love Animo in particular because it's not focused on trying to get as many people through the door as possible. It's not focused on creating a factory of, we got them to say yes to Jesus, and now we send them on their way. It's about friendships. It's actually relationships. It's community building. That's one of the ways we do this. We also work through UMCOR. We do Heifer and Charity Water. We do Pack Away Hunger, where meals get sent across the world, but also stays right here in our community. We do that well. We also do the other side. We support the food pantry and Women to Women. We have Soup for the Soul, which feeds over 200 people every single other week. The Thanksgiving meal that feeds 800 people. Countless emergency assistance. You should talk to Stephanie Stewart sometime about how many people come in for help throughout the week. And we are blessed as a church because of your generosity to be able to say, let us help in this time of need. With energy assistance, when they can't pay their light bill, we do that kind of work. We care. But like anything else in our lives, it could sometimes drop out. It could trickle out. Imagine a pinhole in the 50-gallon water tub. Eventually, that could drain it. Even though you think you have plenty of water, something's going. And that happens often when we think about this care thing. If we're not reminded of what we're supposed to be doing, if we're not reminded why we do it, it's really easy for us to stop or to do less or to step back or to let it kind of go by the wayside. And then we still get to rest on, look what we used to do. But can I be honest with you? No one cares what we used to do. Those are great. Memories are great. And we've done amazing things at the church. But the people who aren't in here don't care what we used to do. The people that we're supposed to care for, our community, people around the world, that's great that you did that 30 years ago. How have you cared recently? How are you caring now? We can't just rest on our resume. It's not an option. And luckily, this is something Jesus is very particular about. He's very focused on it. And because Christ has told us to do this, we do it. This is what it says in John 15, as Brad read it. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my command, you will remain in my love, just as I kept my Father's command and remain in his love. I've told you this so that my joy may be in you, that your joy may be complete. And pause there. Leave it up. Leave it up. Don't move it. Leave it there. Jesus tells us that the Father has loved him, and because of that love, he has loved us. So Jesus is the example of love, right? He receives love from the Father. He gives love to us. Does everybody understand that process? It's an A plus B equals C, or an A equals B equals C. As the Father loves the Son has loved us. That's what we're supposed to do. And then Jesus does this. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Love each other as I have loved you. So the level of love we're supposed to have for each other is the love that Jesus has for us, which is the love the Father has for the Son. That's a terrifying amount of love. It's not a love we have a concept for. It's so foreign to us. Because think about the perfect love of God in the Trinity. The Father perfectly loves the Son, and the Son perfectly loves us. So then we're supposed to perfectly, that's terrifying, love each other. Well, surely that doesn't mean like the big love, right? Because, Jesus died on the cross for us. We can't mean that kind of love. That's kind of out of our reach, right? That's a little too far. But then Jesus goes on. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because the servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything I have learned from my Father I have made known to you. So Jesus tells us there's not a loophole. We love loopholes, especially here in America. We're big fans of loopholes. You pay somebody to find loopholes for you come tax season. Like, you have a person that you go to. Or if you don't, you do it by yourself. You're an amazing person. Congratulations. I pay someone to find loopholes. We love them. We don't get a loophole here from Jesus. No greater love than this, right? For a person to lay down their lives for their friends. You're my friends. They don't know Jesus is going to die yet. But he is setting up the dominoes so he can just go. And it all comes crashing down. You're my friends. No greater love is this than the person to give up their life for their friends. You're supposed to love others as I've loved you, as the Father has loved me. Therefore, the big equation, the love we're expected of from God is that we would lay down our lives for our friends. That's the level of love we're supposed to do. I've not done that. Have you? See, the call for care is greater than we actually want to admit it is. It's more than just giving a couple dollars to a missionary to come to the church. It's more than just giving an hour or two a month to a project or a program. It's a life change. It's love personified. It's action. It's a verb. It's something we have to physically do. It cannot be a past thing. It cannot be a thought process of, oh, well, this is just how I live my loving life. Have you given down? Have you laid down your life for your friends? Everything that Jesus has been taught by the Father, think about that for a second. Everything that Jesus has learned from the Father, he distills down into his one commandment. Without Jesus, none of you would be here, neither would I. Jesus is the event of our faith, right? We're not Jewish, so we can't claim Yahweh. Jesus is the reason for us. Jesus says, this is my command. When we get a new boss at your work, and they say, this is the focus, do you listen to that? Jesus says, this is my one commandment. The thing that if you do, you'll remain in me and I'll remain in you. The thing that if you do this thing, you will have joy, and joy in abundance. Love one another as I have loved you. Jesus could not have chosen a harder commandment. It's not possible. People think, we went from 600 and something laws just to one, so it'd be easier. God, no. Jesus set the bar super high. Love one another is not the hard part. Because we naturally can love people. There are people that you know that you just love. People that are families, that are friends, that you just love those people. Love one another as I have loved you. That's different. That's hard. That's challenging in a way that's beyond what we think it is, because it's more than just a feeling. It requires action. Jesus gave us the model. Now we have to replicate it. And that means we cannot ignore the pain, the hunger, the fear, the addiction, the hopelessness in our world around us. We can't ignore it because Jesus didn't ignore it. And that's not just locally, that's globally. We can't ignore that because Jesus did. One of the best parts about Scripture, if you really read the Gospels, you'll see this. Jesus saw people. Not on the base level. Jesus saw people. The outcast and the broken, the lame, those without hope. That's who Jesus sees and speaks to throughout the Gospels. He came for that group of people. You don't see it anywhere else. Jesus is so unique in this thing that he came and saw that group and made his home with them. We talk a big game. Jesus hung out with sinners. He did, true. But he built relationships with them. He didn't just take a selfie and move on with the rest of his day. He also didn't care what people said about hanging out with those people. He didn't have to justify himself in any way, shape, or form. He cared with relationship and took it upon himself to make that work. If we call ourselves Christians, Christ-like, if we take his name, we have to take his eyes. We have to see what he sees. We can't ignore it because it's easy. It's easy to be blissfully unaware, blissfully ignorant of the world around us. It's easy for us to see pain and suffering and to turn the channel. It's easy for us to see a post and just to think, oh, that has to be a scam. And sadly, we're in a world where that's it. There are people out there who will take advantage of us. There are people out there who took advantage of Jesus, who should remember. Remember when he healed 10 people and only one person came back to him? He didn't stop healing, in case you didn't know. I can summarize it for you. He didn't. Because it didn't matter what happened. What mattered is that he did what he was supposed to do. Modeled that love and care for us. And now we're supposed to go and do it. So are you? Are you caring? That's the ministry we're called to. It's also who we are. You know, we're Methodists. That's a big term. John Wesley is the guy that kind of started off this whole Methodist party, him and his brother. They were two really weird guys that decided to go hang out and read Bibles together. That's kind of what they started a club. People started making fun of them for that club they were part of. But they had two different things that kind of summarized the Christian method. The method to being a Christian. Methodist, where we get that from. There were acts of piety, which you guys probably know really well. That's reading scripture, that's coming to church, that's prayer, the spiritual disciplines. The part that so often we harp on, because it's important. You have to do those things. If you want to grow in your faith, you have to do them. But there's a second part that was equally important, called acts of mercy. Where they would visit people in the hospital, visit people in the prisons. They would run soup kitchens. John Wesley started an entire movement called Methodism, but you know what? He published a lot of books. His most famous book, the one that was published the most, had nothing to do with God. He published a layman's health book. He was not a doctor. He should not have done that. There's a lot of leeches involved in John Wesley's book. But because of the acts of mercy, because of the care that he saw that God had called them to, he published that book. Because he had to. I have some knowledge of this space. I know some doctors. I'm going to do what I can to get this word out there because people need help. They need to know someone actually cares. That's our history. This is us. We are called to care. We're called to care for those God placed in our path. To not take the easy route of being blissfully unaware or the angry route of that person doesn't need what I have as much as I do. We're called just to care. And we do care. This is us. We have done it. We are doing it. We will continue to do it, but we could do it better. But you have to get involved in that, in how we care. Some of the new things we're doing right now for caring is the Thrive ministry we're doing with elementary school students. We were in there on Friday, and they know us now. It's so exciting. Are we thriving today? Yes, you are. I love that they asked that question in that way. Yes, we are thriving today. And we get to sit down with kids and help them work through communication skills, leadership skills, and that's super great. But also it's just, you'll have a third grader just kind of come up and just hug your side because they haven't had a hug for a long time. You're just like, hey, bud, let's get back to task. You redirect, but that's why we're there. Because you cannot flourish in school unless you know that you're loved, that you're cared for. And so many of our kids don't have that, and we're being that. We also have stuff that's been there for a while, like Soup for the Soul. where this year in particular, we made a conscious decision to make it more like a home, where you're coming in with nice plates and silverware, where people are going to ask you how your day is, where we're celebrating birthdays and anniversaries, where we're grieving with you when you're grieving, because we know it can't just be food, it has to be care, it's holistic. We do this, but here's also my vision. There is a ministry right now, a way that we're supposed to care for our community and for the world that I have no idea about, because God is talking to you about it, not me. The Spirit in the last 10 minutes has laid upon your heart something of, hey, remember that thing we talked about 6 weeks ago when we were watching that movie and that came up, and I was like, that's what he's talking about. It's time for you to start that, because that's what God does. You're called to care. It's not a pastoral job. It's part of the job. But it's us. This is us. This is you. God is calling you to care in a new way for this community or for the world. A new way for you to be actively involved, because we're no longer servants, because servants don't know the business of the master. We're into the club. We're about our Father's business. We're just waiting on you to say yes. So as God is leading and guiding you to care, we will care alongside you, because this is us. This is who we are. Mumsy cares for the world, for Guatemala. Even though most of us probably couldn't point to Guatemala on a map, we care for Guatemala. We care for Monticello. We care for the world around us. We care because Jesus does. This is us. Thanks be to God.